Have you ever been kicked in the balls and enjoyed it? Me neither. Yes, this is a terrible video intro. Crash Twinsanity is not quite as bad as a kick to the balls, but it's still kind of weird that I like it so much. We covered the original PS1 Crash trilogy previously on this channel, go check that out later if you haven't already. And those games were generation-defining successes. Generations don't last forever, however, and Crash's place on the PS2 was not nearly as prestigious as it had been on Sony's debut console. We skipped a few chapters in this story. I might go back eventually and take a deeper look into the Wrath of Cortex, Crash's first venture into the 6th generation. But for now I'll be blunt. Wrath of Cortex was a mediocre game at best, thoroughly unimpressive. It took all the mistakes that Crash 3 made, amplified them, threw them into a jankier, less inspired package, and shipped it. It's not a terrible game, I don't want to sound like I hate it. It has its moments, but it doesn't live up to its predecessors. Wrath of Cortex may be considered either the final classic Crash game or the first new Crash game. It plays a lot like the PS1 trilogy. It also marks the beginning of Crash's slow and unsatisfying decline into irrelevance. During the PS2 era, Crash would be passed around from developer to developer, and none of them seemed to know in what direction to take the series. As the first mainline game in the series not to be developed by Naughty Dog, it played very safe, and it turning out as it did made it clear that simply recycling the old formula wasn't going to cut it. In the PS1 and N64 days, many developers were chasing the idea of the transition from 2D to 3D. Mario, Zelda, Sonic, Castlevania, Mega Man, Final Fantasy, Donkey Kong, the list goes on. Crash was born as a 3D game, but it was born at a time when no one really knew what a 3D game was supposed to be. Famously, Crash Bandicoot, the game, not the series, took a very simple and intuitive approach to that. It just shifted the camera. Crash 1's level design is still very traditional, but by the end of the generation, Mario's approach, with large open areas, a controllable camera, and a lot of shit to collect had become the norm, and Crash just looked limited in comparison, and just shoving in a bunch of mediocre vehicle levels to make up for it wasn't working all that well anymore. Crash had to go even further 3D. That's Crash Twinsanity, an attempt to modernize Crash, to make him competitive again for a new generation. Well, that's half of Crash Twinsanity. On top of completely changing the formula, the developers at Traveler's Tales decided to also shift the focus into story. This is something that had already been happening since the PS1 days. Each new Crash game seemed to focus more and more on story, but by the third game it was still clearly an afterthought. It was clear that the series was moving in that direction, but it wasn't committed to it fully. Twinsanity has a lot of dialogue and a lot of cutscenes. The game starts with one of those cutscenes. Crash's sister Coco is chasing a butterfly around and Cortex hits her with his Goi beam or something. He disguises himself as her to very convincing results in an attempt to get Crash to follow him, which of course works. Hey, did you know you can subscribe? Yeah, amazing, right? You know, I was wondering, what does the N in Cortex's forehead stand for? Oh no, don't type that in the comments, holy shit. Phew, that was close. Well, since you're already there, you might as well leave a nice comment that doesn't include any bad no words. Thanks. Crash Twinsanity leans heavily on the Looney Tunes style of humor, which was actually the main inspiration for the series identity-wise from the very first game. It's very slapstick and very funny. Crash's story was becoming increasingly serious on the PS1, and never got to the point of actually taking itself particularly seriously, but Crash 3 in particular introduced its villains as actually pretty menacing. Twinsanity, in contrast, is very much a comedy, and I really like it for that. I'm usually pretty critical of excessive cutscenes in video games, but man, these are good. They're not without their problems, but we'll get to that. The story in Twinsanity is very enjoyable, but what about the actual game part of the game? Crash Twinsanity breaks from the traditional Crash formula by being mostly built off of large areas littered with collectibles and seen through a fully controllable camera. In what may very well be a deliberate callback to the first Crash Bandicoot, we first take control of Crash in a beach area. We could...
It is I, Aku Aku. My duty is to protect you. You may summon me by breaking open these crates. Call me thrice, and I shall grant you special powers.
Okay, thanks Aku Aku. Anyway, we could follow Cortex right away, but there's actually quite a bit to do here in this area. Beyond the camera and level structure, another way in which Twinsanity differs from its predecessors is in its focus on platforming puzzles. Whereas in previous Crash games, gems, the main optional collectible, were mostly earned by breaking every crate in the level. Here all of them can be found just floating around, and getting to them mostly requires completing a platforming challenge, finding a hidden area through exploration, or completing a puzzle. Those puzzles usually involve a lot of nitro crates. These work similarly to how they did in the classic games. Touch them, they go boom, you take damage. Good thing we got Aku Aku. Silly devs, they never saw this coming. Fuck this puzzle shit, I'll tank the...
It is I, Aku Aku. My duty is to protect you. You may summon me by breaking open these crates.
Okay, I get it, goddammit, go away. Why can't I skip this fucking... Okay, whatever, I guess we'll just get the fucking chicken to blow up the nitros as intended. So, as it turns out, there is one difference in the way nitro crates work in this game compared to the others. They're an insta-kill no matter what. I guess since so many puzzles here rely on them, the devs decided to make all of them cheese-proof by simply making it impossible to tank a single hit from the explosion. Spoiler alert, it doesn't really work all that well. If that was the reason, couldn't they simply make a new crate type for those puzzles that go through masks? As it stands, the masks feel almost completely useless. Even the special powers that Aku Aku mentions should be granted upon calling him 3 times turns out to be little more than a glowy effect around Crash that lasts for a few seconds. Not even the triple mask can tank a nitro explosion. It's just sad. Well, there's still a lot to do here, so let's get to it. If we just platform over this bit of ocean...
It is I, Aku Aku.
Okay, here's the second lesson we can learn from this area. Cutscenes in Twinsanity, while often hilarious, have one problem. They're unskippable, and they play again and again when you trigger them. And the triggers never ever go away, no matter how many times we've seen them. You can probably see the problem. Yeah, Cortex dressing up as a girl is hilarious, big comedy, haha, good times. It's funny for like the first 5 times. But if you suck really bad, or if you're experimenting and dying in the process, it starts getting old. Look, I'm not that bad at the game, I'm not dying multiple times in the tutorial, but obviously this problem gets worse as the game progresses. And really, just being forced to watch a full minute plus long cutscene you've already seen once before you can go back to playing the game because you died is pretty fucking shitty. Comedy has a tendency to lose its effect to repetition. Things also tend to be less funny when you're annoyed. Okay, we wasted enough time here. Whoa, look at me collecting all those gems. Approaching Coco triggers another cutscene. It might not look like it, but this is no longer the same level we were at just a few moments ago. This is something really cool about Twinsanity. The transition between levels is usually seamless. It really feels like a cohesive, interconnected world. The game consists of 4 hub worlds with 3 levels each. Each hub and each level contains 6 gems. The beach we started at was part of the first hub world, and now we're at level 1, Jungle Bungle. It's basically a tutorial level, but it's really funny. It goes through all the movement techniques you'd have probably figured out by yourself by just mashing buttons for a few seconds, but who cares? The whole thing is extremely entertaining. There are a few more puzzles we can do here for gems, including this one that can't be finished unless you know you can slide into these rollable bombs to make them go over obstacles, which the game never explains. Might have been a better use of one of the tutorial cutscenes than press X to jump. By the way, the game seems really proud of this rolling object mechanic, and honestly, it's actually kind of shit. It's like these objects sort of attach to Crash when it gets near them, but the distance at which that happens is not really very clear. They also preserve momentum if we stop, and turning while rolling something around is a nightmare. The whole thing is just very unpredictable. I really like the way Twinsanity looks. Obviously what you're looking at is emulator footage with upscaled textures and running at a much higher resolution than it normally would on a PS2, but the art design is really great, and Sanity Island looks really pleasant. Character designs have been updated, but only slightly, and they all look recognizable. This is like a natural evolution of the PS1 designs as opposed to whatever this was. This game is a great representation of the type of slightly gritty, cartoony graphics that were commonplace in the mid-2000s. It's a huge improvement over Wrath of Cortex especially. That game looked pretty fucking rough in many places.
What have I got? Alley-oop! It's true. Blondes do have more fun.
As the level starts introducing more and more challenges, some of Twinsanity's flaws start to become more apparent. To put it simply, Twinsanity is just not as competent of a platformer as any of its predecessors, and that includes the Wrath of Cortex. The controls are not as responsive, Crash's moveset is not as satisfying. It reflects the change in focus, obviously, but I find it hard to justify making the game feel objectively worse to play. The most satisfying aspect of movement in Crash 2 and 3 was light jumping. It was quick, responsive, and extremely useful. By performing a jump during this light animation, Crash would gain a lot of extra height and distance. The slide is still here, as is the slide jump, but just look at it. On top of it being a lot worse, it's a lot harder to control, as Crash is basically locked in his trajectory as soon as it leaves the ground, and it also doesn't work half the time. You have to press jump at a very specific part of the slide now for it to work. Press it too soon and Crash will simply fly into the nearest hole. The result is that the move is basically useless for casual play, and the worst part is, they remove the ability to use the objectively correct input to activate it. In the PS1 you could either press circle like a degenerate, or use R1 to slide like a patrician giga chat. In Twinsanity you're forced to play like a pleb.
I'm okay! The spikes broke my fall.
The level ends with the boss fight. Right before it we can see the starting area in the distance. Pretty cool. Coco reveals herself to really be Cortex in disguise. Whoa. Thankfully he's not up to anything nefarious this time around, he just wanted to throw Crash a birthday party with all his friends from the previous games. The gifts are kinda shit though. The first phase of the fight consists basically of dodging energy balls Cortex shoots at us, and then reflecting one back at him. Then, Cortex assistant, Engine, shows up piloting a giant mech, and we have to fight it by deflecting more energy balls at it. It's an okay fight. Boss fights in this game are not very good, I'll just get that out of the way, but this one is fine. It's not hard, but it shouldn't be considering it's the first level in the game, and it does enough not to be boring. The final energy ball causes Cortex to crash into Crash. Yeah, not going there. They fall down a hole and Cortex tackles Crash. In this level, Cavern Catastrophe, we control Cortex and Crash's cartoony fight dust cloud. In Wrath of Cortex, one of the few good types of gimmick levels, well, maybe the only one, were the Atlas Sphere levels, where we controlled Crash inside a ball and had to navigate obstacles to reach the end of the level. It was like a shittier monkey ball, but it was fun. It's not as good in Twinsanity, but it makes up for being jankier and controlling worse by simply being really fucking funny and creative. I love how if we stop completely, they'll be at one of those positions where one of them is pulling at the other's leg or something. It really captures the Looney Tunes style really well. Again, it's really cool that the level just starts with little fanfare. We see the cutscene and just like that, we're controlling Crash and Cortex as they fall down a tunnel. One annoying thing about this section is the fact that the path splits in two in a few situations, and if you're looking for gems, you have to take the correct one without really any indication of which one it is. Went the wrong way? Well, fuck you. Jump off into the abyss below and enjoy a trip back to the previous checkpoint. Already got to the next checkpoint? Well, fuck you even harder. Go restart the level or something. Eventually, we fall down into a flat rock formation and Cortex finds something familiar. As he grabs it, a giant drill comes out of nowhere and starts spawning alien ant things with laser swords. We have to make it go away by body slamming on these huge green buttons around it.
Keep back, you weak-minded fool! Avert your gaze or you'll go crystal crazy!
Crash and Cortex are now fighting for the crystal, and this is yet another gameplay style. As they both hold onto it, we can now throw Cortex around and use his huge head as a hammer, which I personally find hilarious. The level ends after a little more rolling around and running away from the giant drill, and if we hold forward as the cutscene at the end ends, this happens. Weird things happen when you press buttons during cutscenes cutscenes in this game. It's clearly very well polished and not at all held together with duct tape. Cortex runs ahead and now we're alone at a small cavern. These are usually transitory areas between the larger hubs and they're a good chance to stock up on extra lives. They're clearly here to disguise loading screens, but whatever, I think they work well enough. As we leave the cave, we start hearing a familiar tune. We're back at the Sanity Island overworld. Music is one of the most iconic aspects of this game. The whole soundtrack is entirely a cappella and it sounds really good. Crash has always had good music, but here it really stands out. Now we're introduced to the actual villains of the game. These two parrot things with huge heads. They say they'll blow up the island or whatever. If we follow a cave tucked away in the corner of this area, we'll find ourselves back at the beach where the game started, which is pretty neat. Anyway, there are a few more puzzles here involving nitro crates, and if we keep going, we'll reach the third level, Totem Hokum. Oh, okay then.
You have to help me, Crash. You heard them. They want to destroy our island home, humiliate and enslave you, and steal my brain. How I envy the simple life of the tribesfolk. Living in harmony with Mother Nature. The noble boar, the humble bumblebee.
This is another new level type that's really creative. Cortex is being chased around screaming and it's very Looney Tunes-esque again. We have to clear a path for him. I like these. They're very fast-paced and very funny. The biggest problem is just the cutscene thing. Dying means watching every single cutscene since the last checkpoint again, and that can get old if you don't know what you're doing. I will say a first playthrough of Crash Twinsanity is a lot more frustrating than any later revisits. After the obstacle course, Cortex's torture session is still not over. Now he gets kidnapped by Papu Papu, the fat native chief who was the most useless boss from the first game. We're expected to save him for whatever reason. This leads into a really shitty stealth section that pretty much boils down to crouching behind foliage until the game gives us the go ahead. Then we get to the native village and holy shit, this level is still not over. I'm not complaining or anything. I actually think this game does gameplay variety really well. Definitely better than Crash 3 did. This area is pretty open and cool to explore for gems. Jumping around the rooftops and shit, always cool. The real objective is to guide this worm from hole to hole around the village all the way to the totem pole where Cortex is tied up along with the level crystal, so we can jump on it and reach him. I went and did that before collecting all the gems and that advances the level with no way to go back. Very well thought. Cortex ends up falling into the river and we have to run away from the natives in a rather shitty chase section. Surely that's the end of the level, right? Nope. We find Cortex as he fucking murders some random farmer. One crappy whack-a-mole minigame later and we finally reach the end, after a boss fight. So in this fight you hold right for what feels like 15 minutes and throw Cortex into the giant stone statue thing. Repeat 3 times. Really, as long as you hold right, nothing can ever hit you. Oh well, I guess I should do my Duolingo lesson for today. Anyway, if we touch the fucker even after it's dead, we take damage, so pay attention if you don't want to re-watch all the cutscenes and waste another 5 minutes holding right on the controller. Truly a very well polished game that was totally finished in time. Cortex wants us to go to the next hub world so we can follow the evil parrots, but since I missed a few gems in the past level, we're going back. Alright, that should do it. I'm still missing one. God fucking damn it. It's the green gem right at the start. I'm blind apparently. And each time I replay the level I have to watch every cutscene and refight the garbage boss. Man, if only there was a way to like let the player not watch a cutscene if they don't want to. Man, I wonder how that could work. Maybe you'd like press a button during the cutscene and the game would skip it? Yeah, you could call that skipping fucking cutscenes, you pieces of shit. Okay, I'm calm. But really, it's amazing just how much this game would be improved by this basic ass quality of life feature that basically every modern game has. To be fair, skipping cutscenes wasn't really as commonplace back in the PS2 era, but the fact that the game never actually clears cutscene triggers even after the level is beaten is a whole new level of shit. It really feels like an oversight. To be honest, I wouldn't recommend going for gems in the first place. Some of them are fun, they do add to the levels they're at for the most part, but if you miss one, it's extremely inconvenient to go back for it, and you don't really get anything for collecting them. In a previous game, the true ending was locked behind 100% completion. Here we get concept art. I mean, it's kind of cool, but the internet was already a thing in 2004. It doesn't really add much value. Well, now we can take a boat to the iceberg where Cortex's lab is located. Another hub world, 6 more gems we can find by exploring around. I especially like this one that we need to platform over breakable boxes to get to. And if we fall, the crates won't respawn unless we jump off the cliff or reload the area. It's great. Then we have to follow Cortex into a cave because he forgot to change the batteries on the remote that opens the laboratory. This one is a pretty standard platforming level. We have to climb the central tower inside the cave for the first half, and then use Cortex to navigate an obstacle course over a lake on the outside. It's not a very memorable level to be honest, but it's pretty fun. And it gets extra points for not being particularly infuriating like so many others. Eventually we find a familiar face trapped in ice. Hey, it's Uka Uka. I thought he was supposed to be the big bad villain of the series, but he is reduced to a joke in this game, both in lore and gameplay. After Crash tries to kiss him, he creates an ice body and we fight him in what is probably the most pathetic boss fight in the entire game. For all 3 phases, all we have to do is throw Cortex into a lever and jump into the button that shows up in the middle of the arena. He attacks by making ice spikes come out of the ground in a pattern that feels like it's deliberately trying to not hit Crash. It takes about a minute to finish. After the fight, Aku Aku convinces Uka Uka to join their side by implying the evil twins are taking his job of destroying the world. They both go away to confront them, and we find the hidden entrance to Cortex's lab a little further ahead. As we enter it, we learn that the masks failed miserably at defeating the twins, and were thrown into a terrible combat section. Yeah, you heard that right. We have to kill enough of these ant guys with laser swords before the game will allow us to continue. The best way to do this is to weave in and out of their attack range. Spin once and go away. Each one takes 2 hits to die. The twins leave again, but not before mentioning the riches hidden away in their dimension, which piques Cortex's interest naturally. Also, he apparently ruined their lives somehow.
Dr. Cortex, what have you done?
Who are these evil upstarts? I've ruined the lives of so many. I can't be expected to remember them all.
Wanna see something else really cool? So, the game decided I wasn't standing on this platform as it went down. I tried to jump back on it and it killed me. Then I had to do the whole end fight again, complete with the cutscene at the end. Fun. Turns out we don't have enough crystals to power the machine, so now we have to go look for more. Then we get one of my favorite cutscenes in the game.
There! To the sea, I tell you! Our salvation floats upon the briny blue! We must reach Engine's battleship, and quickly before it sets sail! But how? Think, Cortex, think!
Yeah, it's another new gameplay style. In this one, we're playing as Crash using Cortex as a snowboard, which opens up a lot of possibilities for the developers to make fun of his pain. It's fine by itself. The music is good when the game doesn't glitch out and play the hub theme instead. And if you just go through it, it's a fun and again, hilarious at times little distraction.
Coming through! Ladies? Excuse me, madam. Are those real? Mother?
The bigger problem again presents itself if you're autistic and can't sleep at night if you don't go after every collectible in your 20-year-old baby games. You can't turn around. If you're paying attention, you can probably see where I'm going. Miss the gym? Fuck you. Blow Crash up on a nitro crate and try again from the last checkpoint. What's that? Got a checkpoint after missing a gem? Well, geez, that sucks. you're gonna have to restart the whole level and rewatch the cutscene. Jeez. What really pisses me off is the fact that sometimes they have a checkpoint right after a gem, so you can't even die on purpose to go back. Again, getting all gems is just not worth it. And that's the entire level pretty much. Going from the marathon that was level 3 from the first hub to a whole level being a 3-minute long slide minigame feels kind of weird. But worry not, the next one makes up for it in that regard. Crash and Cortex fall on top of a cabin and destroy it. Dingodile, the coolest boss from Crash 3, was living there, and overhears Cortex talking about the twins' treasure. High Seas Hi-Jinks starts out with a platforming section that reminds me a lot of Rusty Bucket Bay from Banjo-Kazooie, where we have to navigate the interior of his ship full of rats and explosives, into a semi-boss fight but not really against Engine, which sucks huge balls. Really, I say it's a semi-boss fight because they didn't even bother giving him a health bar like every other fight in the game. It's very similar to the Totem statue guy from Hub 1 in the sense that the fight boils down to holding right on the controller for a while. Then the level transitions into a chase sequence where we run away from a Boras guy that is trying to cook Crash and who never shows up again. Once we make it outside, we are greeted by a huge pile of TNT. Engine awkwardly falls on top of it without any accompanying sound effects, and Crash is launched by the explosion into the level's actual boss fight, which is against two returning villains, Embryo and Entropy, who heard about the treasure and want a piece of it. This one is a little better, but also feels unfinished. All three phases are basically the same. Embryo turns into a giant green monster and bounces around the ice platform we're in. I'll give you a second to guess how you deal with it. If you guess walk around in circles, you win. Then Entropy will show up doing a T-pose and break the platform down into smaller ones that he'll sink one by one. For this one, we have to jump in circles. Big step forward in terms of boss design for this game. Then his shield will disappear and we can damage him. Repeat 2 more times. In the end, I like the platforming part of the level and the rest doesn't really take that long, so it's okay. The iceberg is ultimately the least interesting part of the game, to be honest. Now we have all the crystals we need, but Coco shows up and breaks Cortex's whatever machine.
My crystals! Ruined! Thanks to Perky here. Must be repaired.
Only Cortex's niece, Nina, can help fix it, so we have to go pick her up at Madame Amberley's Academy of Evil, where evil scientists receive their education. On the way there, we get a tutorial on how to use Cortex. Yes, he's a playable character, and yes, he sucks. He's slow, can barely jump, and attacks by shooting some laser pistol that has limited ammo. Then, with no cutscene and no fanfare, we appear at the Academy. This is the coolest hub in the game in my opinion. The visuals are top notch. You can really tell this game was made in the early 2000s by the gothic aesthetics. The courtyard is not as large as either of the previous hub worlds, but it's fun to explore for gems. Just be careful not to get too close to Cortex or the cutscene that begins the next level will play. Most of the puzzles here involve kicking a soccer ball into a pile of nitro crates, so they're not really all that amazing in the end. But I'll be honest, I just love the atmosphere here too much to care. Also, Gruntilda from Banjo-Kazooie is here for some reason laughing in the background. Well, Cortex claims to know all the secrets and not Hogwarts. Then he presses a button and we end up in the sewers. This level is all about connecting tubes and rolling Cortex into them. It starts with a fart joke.
I'm stuck! The greatest evil scientist in the world! Stuck in a pipe. How could things get any worse?
Honestly, this wouldn't even be funny if the delivery on that wine wasn't so fucking good. The level never gets too complex. We shove Cortex into a pipe and platform around looking for blue valves to spin, which put parts of the pipe path in place so Cortex won't die. The level looks kind of drab, but the platforming is solid. What really elevates it to a good level is that it finishes with the only good boss fight in the game. Surprise, it's Dingodile. Truly the best Crash boss. He really can't do no wrong. Coolest design design, coolest personality, best fight in Warped, best fight in Twinsanity. He just keeps racking up the wins. What makes this a good fight? Well, for starters, it requires more than just holding right to beat, and that already elevates it past half of the competition. It actually requires usage of pretty much all of Crash's moveset, including the slide, as well as good positioning, and that involves very little waiting around. Dingodile attacks with his flamethrower and will actually change the height and direction of the flames. He'll eventually charge a fireball we have to dodge at the last second to make him hit a switch that causes a shower to extinguish the flames that protect him at the center of the arena, and that'll be our opportunity to damage him. He changes patterns from phase to phase and goes down in 4 hits. I think the fight takes a little long, but it's really good, and I don't just mean in the context of this game, it's actually very engaging. I'm not sure what the point of going into the sewers even was, but there's a new door open at the courtyard now that leads to Classroom Chaos, the next level. This is one of those levels that consists of a bunch of pretty janky, poorly implemented, and frankly kind of broken parts that should by all means be a frustrating mess, but that somehow turns out pretty memorable, kinda like the game itself. First we have another crappy stealth section where we have to hide from these hall monitors when they turn on their lanterns. There are 2 ways to do this, the boring and safe way where we run between the sparkling safe spots one at a time, and the dumb way where we try to rush and end up dead. What's cool is how holding the analog stick during the cutscenes that play at the start of each of these sections causes Crash to slide around with no animation again. Here's a fun challenge to make this whole thing even dumber. Try to keep Crash in this state for the whole thing. He goes back to normal if we let go of the stick. Then there's my least favorite part of the entire game. We get to a library and some acid shit starts rising from the ground. Yeah, it's sort of a chase section. We need to get to the top level of the room. Sounds okay, right? Well, let's talk about shadows. You know how usually in 3D platformers, characters have shadows that go straight down to help the player visualize where exactly they are in the 3D space? Well, the shadow is here, sure. There is just one little problem. It doesn't work on crates. For some bizarre reason, the shadow doesn't project on crates. I'm sure this is yet another glitch, and considering most precision platforming in the game happens over metal crates, this is a pretty big problem. You end up just having to intuit where Crash is going to end up. This is easier said than done, but in most instances the camera is at least consistent, so if we understand Crash's jump distance we'll probably be fine. But then we have a section with a poorly scripted camera featuring precision platforming over crates, and to make matters worse, the whole thing is a chase section, so we can't take our time with jumps. It's shit, I hate this room. I don't want to sound like I'm DSP, but most of my deaths in this game don't really feel like they're my fault, and that's rarely a good indicator. Cortex tells Crash to go back to the ship and secure it. Now we will play as him. And the segment starts with another chase section. We're being chased by fucking bugs of all things. It's not great, and made worse by the fact that we have to keep track of ammo for Cortex's gun. Cortex has sort of a slide where he trips forward, but it has so many delay frames at the end that it ends up being completely useless. Also, I'm still pissed that masks don't protect us from nitro crates. After the chase segment, we have to kill a bunch of frogs in a room, which I find to be a pointless waste of time. And then we get to the more traditional part of the level, where we have to navigate the school corridors, getting rid of obstacles with Cortex's gun. Look, Cortex plays kind of bad, I'm not gonna lie, but I really don't mind him very much. You know why? Because it doesn't make up half the fucking game. As it is, this half level we play as him serves as a bit of variety. It has a novelty factor that makes it memorable. The level keeps cycling between shitty bug chase sections, shitty frog killing sections, and decent more traditional platforming sections for the remainder of it. It sounds like I hate it, but I'll reiterate, I think the novelty here makes up for the flaws. Being able to play as Cortex is kinda cool. Well, the level ends as Cortex reaches a dorm where Nina, his niece, is. Nina's great, I love her. Yeah, this is another simping segment on a Set Yo video. Don't worry, I only do this for 2D women. The developers absolutely knew what they were doing here, considering they single her out on the back of the box. 4 playable characters, including Nina Cortex, the bionic goth girl. The text enthusiastically states, "Being a man with functioning testicles, I can see the appeal of those 2 words put together, so I don't really blame them. Hard to believe, I know, but I'm not actually a cardboard cutout of an anime girl." sorry to disappoint. And yes, she is in fact playable, for a grand total of about 80% of one level and a third of a boss fight later on. About as much as Cortex, to be fair. Also, who the fuck is the fourth playable character? This goes to show just how unfinished this game is. My guess is Coco was probably going to be playable originally, and was cut so late into development that they couldn't change the cover text anymore. Either that or they just didn't give a shit, or forgot about it. Hooray for false advertisement, I guess. Apparently the manual, which I totally have, tries to explain that away by saying that Crash and Cortex combined are the fourth character, but come on. I'd rather be straight up lied to than have my intelligence insulted with such a dumb excuse. Nina doesn't actually say anything in this game, but she has an actress credited as her for her grunts, I guess. Her being mute seems like just another instance of something that came about thanks to the developers not having enough time to implement the lines. Like the multiple instances of lack of sound effects in the cutscenes. It just feels awkward. As for how she plays, it's pretty good. She's not quite as nimble as Crash, but is 1,000 times better than Cortex. Her moveset revolves around her mechanical arms. She can extend them to fight enemies, destroy boxes, and even blow up nitro and TNT crates without getting hurt. She can also use them to grapple across gaps. This mechanic is actually, surprise, really janky, at least if you don't know the trick to it. If you try to press the button as the grapple point glows, it'll only work half the time. This has terrible consequences later on. Just hold the button down the whole time and never touch the analog stick, it always works. Thank me later. This is the coolest level in the game in my opinion. Not only because we get to play as Nina and she's cool as fuck, but because running around jumping between rooftops at nights in an evil gothic boarding school is an awesome setting. The level is mostly platforming, that also helps. Also the music kicks ass. It has a chase sequence in the later half where we run away from Cortex's airship that Crash failed to properly tether to the ground. Well, more accurately, we run away from the tether point. I died a lot here my first time through, and I have no idea why, because this time around I beat it first try, no problem. Goes to show sucking at video games can be cured. That's pretty much it for the level, but there's also a boss fight here. For this one we play as Cortex and fight Madame Amberly, the headmistress.
So, crybaby Cortex is all grown up. I see you found employment as a barber.
I'm an evil scientist!
The fight takes place on top of an organ. Madame Amberly shoots at it, causing portions to open up. We have to shoot these down before we become trapped. Then she throws bells at us for some reason. We have to shoot those as well. That somehow causes her to turn around and let us hit her. We have infinite ammo for this section, which comes out of nowhere, but hey, I'm not complaining. We can now leave the Academy of Evil. As we do, Cortex has a flashback.
Wait, I think I remember now. The way it happened.
Victor, Moritz, back in your cage, you naughty boys.
I was 8 years old and the most popular student in the academy. Ah, yes. How they loved me. It was my first experiment with the Evolvo Ray. Phase 1 in my plan to create an army of super animals. The test subjects, my 2 pet parrots, Victor and Moritz. The only creatures I didn't loathe or eat. The experiment was proceeding as planned, when suddenly... my parrots were gone, lost amongst the infinite dimensions. I was heartbroken. How I missed those twins. And how I long to see them again. But be careful what you wish for, young man.
Back off, Grandpa!
For your wish will come true.
God, young Cortex looks terrifying. Turns out he was responsible for creating the evil twins. Much like how he created Crash. Didn't expect Cortex and the US foreign policy to have so much in common. Nina fixes the machine by doing this. And now we can go to the final hub.
Come now, as we explore a new dimension! It should have been 2 new dimensions, but we ran out of time.
You sure did. As soon as we get there, Nina is kidnapped by evil Crash. Why he's there I have no idea. Probably more cut content. Crash and Cortex go after them, and that brings us to the first level of the 10th dimension.
My daughter, niece! We must do something! Think, Cortex, think!
Yeah, it's another new gameplay style. In this one, we're playing as Crash using Cortex as a snowboard, which opens up a lot of possibilities for the developers to make fun of his pain. It's fine by its... What? They recycled the cutscene, why can't I recycle my voiceover? What is this 2-tier shit? Okay, whatever, I'll try to find something new to say. First of all, is Nina Cortex's daughter or niece? From what I know, she's officially his niece, and that daughter bit was just a joke. Weird thing for Cortex to say though. I personally find the thought of her being his daughter to be much more amusing. I mean, just the implication that this guy got someone pregnant is pretty fucking funny by itself. This light gameplay is still fun for the most part, and getting the gems is still annoying. In fact, they're even worse here. This one jump we have to make over a wall of TNT is infuriating, and I have no idea how I even made it. Remember, all that checkpoint shit from the other sliding level still applies here. Just learn to let it go and you'll enjoy this game a lot more. This time around there aren't any particularly funny moments either. It's not terrible, but I guess I'll have to give this level the most uninspired award. It really doesn't do anything interesting or new, it's just there. Then we crawl out of a hole in the ground, and this is the hub world for the 10th dimension. Here the puzzles for the gems start getting pretty annoying. Remember the shit ball physics I talked about like half an hour ago? They're back with a vengeance. Seems like the devs remembered about them right in time to crank the final hour of the game full of the worst possible implementations of them. Thankfully half of them can be cheesed. The area itself looks really cool. I love the skybox and the color palette, and exploring is quite satisfying, even if the puzzles are kind of annoying. The next level is another recycled concept. I'm not really complaining, it's only the second time they do this. It goes back to the idea from the first hub where Cortex is being chased and we have to clear a path for him. It's fun, not much to add. The second half of the level is just an open field with some optional gem puzzles and the entrance to the final level. Well, let's go finish this already. The final level also just so happens to be by far the best in the game. Really, it features a mixture of great platforming and good enough puzzles and is very creative from start to finish. It has those ball rolling puzzles, but they never get very complicated here. They just serve as an occasional break from the platforming. Looking for the gems is also fun. It's an extra incentive to explore this really well built level. The level focuses on these holographic platforms that may disappear after a while, move around in interesting patterns, or appear and disappear in order according to their colors. Red, green, blue, yellow. They usually change around the order though, and that can trip you up very easily if you're not paying attention. It's very fun actually. The level is pretty long too, might take upwards of 20 minutes, but it never gets boring. The game didn't blow up in my face at any time during it either, which is pretty surprising for Crash Twinsanity. Well, that's a pleasant surprise. The game ends with a bang at least, is what I would say if it weren't for the final boss. First there's this cutscene at the end where we find the riches that were promised. This is the one cutscene in the game that I don't really think lands. It's just that Spyro is there and torches all the other villains who followed us here somehow. Haha, I recognize the thing. There is no joke. Anyway, conceptually the twins are actually pretty cool as a boss fight. It's just that the game shits the bed in execution again. We play as all three characters, which is cool. None of the phases actually works well. I keep wanting to say this and I've been holding it in, but I feel like this is the time. This is basically a microcosm of the game. Holy shit, feels good to let it out. Like so many other sections in Twinsanity, this fight has great ideas. Ideas so good in fact that I almost feel like they transcend the terrible execution and manifest as something actually really cool. This is Crash Twinsanity in a nutshell, and it's really hard in the end to separate the idea of Twinsanity and the reality of Twinsanity. The fight is a mess objectively, but you wouldn't know that if I told you what it is. Just use your imagination for a bit. If you've played the game, and I doubt many people who haven't would have made this far into a 40+ minute video from a nobody YouTuber, try to forget the fight just for now. Enjoy the fucking nature sounds or whatever. This boss is a giant mech and it has 3 phases. In the first one, we play as Nina. We have to climb towers in order to destroy energy crystals that are powering the boss up. He summons enemies to try to overwhelm us, stomps the ground and tries to incinerate us with flamethrowers. We need to keep moving and always be one step ahead. In the second phase, we play as Cortex. We need to shoot the mech's guns as we dodge its attacks. And finally, in the third phase, we play as Crash, who also pilots a mech. We need to look for openings in the twins' shield and shoot rockets at it while dodging its attacks. Okay, so that sounds like a perfectly good final boss, right? Utilizing multiple characters and mechanics. How can you fuck this up? The idea is pretty great. Absolutely blows every previous final boss in the series out of the water conceptually. Well,
you see, Pops, when it comes to evil scientific prowess, we learned from the best.
True. Now, playtime is over! Victor, Moritz, back in your cage, you naughty boys!
What am I doing? Curse my regimented upbringing! That's it, Cortex! You want to make up for lost time and play with your pets? So be it.
in her section, Nina has to use her grappling ability to climb those towers, and it's broken. If you don't know not to touch the analog stick and hold the grapple button the entire time, as I said back when we first played as her, you'll probably keep dying here because you'll refuse to grapple to the final point. Then, Cortex's section is another holding right boss, like the Totem. It's boring and offers zero challenge. And finally, Crash's section is easy as fuck. He can also never be hit as long as he's moving, and lining up the missiles requires basically no effort at all. The whole thing actually plays like shit. In the end, the twins are eaten by evil Crash, and Cortex ends up trapped inside Crash's head after failing to kill him with a stupid machine. Not exactly Shakespeare or anything, and that's Crash Twinsanity. Great ideas, great spirit, and absolute soul that are constantly trying to break through the shell of a frustrating, broken mess of a video game. But you know what is really impressive? They more often than not actually do manage to break through. If you tell someone what Crash Twinsanity is trying to do, it sounds good. If you narrate the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, it sounds bad. The truth is, the only way to actually understand Crash Twinsanity is to experience it by yourself. There's no denying that on a technical level, this game is broken, unfinished, frustrating, and unfair. There's also no denying that I thoroughly enjoy it every time I play it. And no, this is not nostalgia speaking. I first played this game last year, and as I did, I screamed, I raged, and I cursed, and I still walked away feeling like I played something special. For all of its faults, there's no game like Crash Twinsanity. It's a game with a vision. It's almost the anti-Wrath of Cortex. While that game played it the safest it possibly could, Twinsanity went absolutely balls to the wall and did what it wanted with an amount of confidence and charisma that I can't help but admire, even if it did end up falling flat on its face. It's a game that does not give a single shit. One could say it's fucking based. Twinsanity set out to modernize Crash Bandicoot to be more like the more open 3D platformers that followed the original game. It could have been the trillionth Banjo-Kazooie / Mario 64-esque collectathon mascot platformer, but no, it did its own thing. The one game that Twinsanity actually reminds me of is Conker's Bad Fur Day, with its focus on story and comedy, the hub worlds that lead to semi-linear levels that circle back on themselves, and the constant shifts in objectives and gameplay styles. Even then, the similarities are basically only structural. A lot of people talk about how much this game needs a remake, and yeah, if any game could benefit from a remake, this is probably it. If only because it's already so close to being amazing, and the flaws are mostly technical. Some small quality of life changes could go a long way towards making Twinsanity that much more enjoyable. At the same time, I'm not sure I'd trust Toys for Bob or any other modern developer with this game's cutscenes. I like Crash 4, but I'm not a fan of its modern cartoon approach to animation and scene direction. Part of what makes Twinsanity's cutscenes so appealing doing is their distinctive style of animation and editing. Well, we could sit around and discuss what a potential remake of this game could or should be for hours, but the reality is that it'll probably never happen. It sucks, but it's safe to say that at this point, Crash's little renaissance is over. For Twinsanity, what you see is what you get. A beautiful, fun, soulful, bad game. But really, at which point does a game have enough qualities to be considered good? At which point are a game's flaws damaging enough that we have to call it bad? Obviously, the answer will change from person to person and from game to game. To me, Crash Twinsanity has that spark of brilliance that few games have. I could call it a beautiful, fun, soulful, bad game, but I think I'd rather say something else. To me, instead, Crash Twinsanity is a broken, frustrating, unfinished, messy, great game. Well, that's it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. It's 2 AM and I can't think of anything funny or quirky to say. I have a bit of a headache, to be honest. So, how are things? Cool. Good luck with that.